Welcome Farm to Family members to Just Roots Unboxing series. In these monthly videos, we'll discuss recipes, tricks, and tips for using the vegetables and fruits in your farm shares. You can find links to all the recipes in the description below, and please visit previous month's videos to find more inspiration for the crops in your share. This video features crops from your August share. Can you believe we're already at the end of August? First, we'll run through some inspiration recipes, and then I'll demo a kale Caesar salad and honey balsamic roasted beets. Alright, without further ado, let's get to it. This share consisted of apples, beets, cucumbers, zucchini, red potato, kale, and if you had a full share, you also received red onions, carrots, and cherry tomatoes. Let's start with apples. Try adding apples to the kale salad demonstrated later in this video, or make a savory apple hash. This is a great side dish for oven roasted chicken, pork chops, or tenderloin, and it can be served for breakfast too. Cucumbers. I can't stop eating this smashed cucumber salad. It only takes 10 minutes to make. It's full of zingy, garlicky flavor. Zucchini. Mediterranean-style zucchini fritters are to die for. Dip these flavor-packed zucchini fritters into tzatziki, and there's no need for bread when you have these crispy fried zucchini stacks. Red potato. Of course, there's nothing like a good old mashed potato, but red potatoes have this excellent skin that's slightly chewy but also soft, and I think they make for an amazing mashed potato if you leave the skins on for this recipe. You could certainly also make potato salad. Cherry tomatoes. Use these garlic roasted cherry tomatoes on flatbreads, pizzas, sandwiches, dips, in pasta sauce, on fish or chicken. They are so delicious and so great to have sitting in your fridge. You can even set them in some olive oil so they stay nice and fresh. That's it for these recipes, and let's look at some demonstrations. I'm going to start off with our kale Caesar salad, and I say Caesar in quotes because it's not really Caesar, but it kind of tastes like it. I wanted to show you what harvesting kale looks like in case you haven't seen a kale plant. They're kind of like miniature trees. They're in the brassica family, related to broccoli, collards, cabbage. It's kind of an exciting plant. So when making a kale salad, I'm going to start off by de-stemming the leaf. So I'm going to remove the leaves from the stem, just grabbing the top of the stem and sliding my hand, grabbing those leaves. Sometimes a little bit breaks off, that's okay. You can always go back in and tear it off. But this is basically because if you're eating it raw, the stem is really tough and is difficult to digest. So if you're cooking with it, you can leave those stems on, but not raw. Next, you can rip or chop the kale up. I find the fastest, easiest way for me is the cigar method, where you kind of like roll it into a bundle or a ball, and then I'm making, an inch wide slices. Just like that. Gather it up, stick it in a big bowl. Sometimes I'll even rip big pieces if they're left behind, or do a cut down the center. So I'll show you one more time. Ball it up, slice it. And so we're already starting to break down that kale and make it more digestible by doing this. Next, we're going to massage the kale. Generally, I do this when the dressing's already on because the salt and the acid that you use helps break the kale down more. But in this case, I'm making the salad early and I don't want to assemble it yet because I don't want it to get too soggy. So I'm going to use the power of my hands to sort of break the cell walls of the kale. This really aids our ability to digest the nutrients in kale. The recipe in the description calls for roasted chickpeas, which would be so delicious, but I don't have them, so I'm going to use sunflower seeds or pepita seeds work. These are pepitas. I'm using about a half cup, loosely measured, and we're going to add some olive oil to it, maybe like a tablespoon. Then we're going to put in a little bit of spices, so salt and pepper, of course. I did a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and maybe an 1/8 teaspoon of pepper. You can really use any of your favorite spices, chili powder, garlic powder, onion powder. We're just trying to bolster the flavor of the pepita seeds. And these are going to get roasted on medium heat on a nonstick frying pan is the best, but cast iron works too, until the green seeds start to brown. So this is different from the recipe posted. If you have chickpeas, I suggest doing it, but this is a great alternative. The salad dressing is really simple. It's not a traditional Caesar, but it somehow tastes like one. It's going to use tahini, so I'm really stirring and mixing that cold tahini up. The oil separates from the sesame seed sort of paste. And we're going to use about a 1/4 cup of that tahini, which can be a little bit difficult to work with. I like to use a little food processor for this. It helps quite a bit. Next, we're going to use some lemon juice. This is the only acidity, and so no vinegar in this dressing. And I'm roughly going to do, a couple teaspoons of lemon juice. But you may want to add more, or maybe add a little bit of vinegar if you don't have lemon juice. Next, we're going to use some water, and this is going to help with the consistency. I just did 1/4 cup. You can add more if you need to. And don't forget about those pepita seeds. I had to take a minute to sort of stir them, or do what I just did, so both sides get evenly toasted. Next, I did a dollop of Dijon mustard, a little bit of salt, and then I'm going to do some pepper as well. We're also going to use either 1 large clove or 2 small cloves of garlic. That can be minced beforehand, or if you're using a food processor, you can just stick it in there. And then we'll go ahead and blend it. So I blend on high until all the ingredients have sort of emulsified and formed a creamy dressing like that. I know that my seeds are finished because they're kind of crackling. You can smell the toasted scent, and they're turning brown. So now, because I'm having this salad later, I'm just going to pour the dressing into a mason jar or some kind of Tupperware. I'll pour my seeds on a paper towel lined plate just to get off some extra oil. Those can also be put in a Tupperware for later so they stay crunchy. You can leave them out on the counter. And you can build onto the salad with so many of the ingredients from your CSA boxes. Here I'm using carrots just to have on the side, some thin rounds. I also did some red onion, so I'm going to slice this in half, take out the outer peel, and slice super thin slices of the red onion. That's how I prefer it in salads raw. Then I'll just wrap up my salad and stick it in the fridge until I'm ready to eat, and that's when I would dress it. The next recipe is also something you could put on the salad you just made, a honey balsamic glazed beet. So I'm going to set the oven temp to 425 and let that preheat. And I'm going to start off by rinsing, making sure I get all the dirt out of the crevices of those beets. Next, I'm going to slice off either end of the beet. So I'm going to get that root hair, sort of that taproot off, and then the top of the beet where the greens are attached. It's kind of hard and fibrous. I'm going to leave the skin on for this recipe. Next, I'm going to cut all the beets. Look how pretty. I'm going to cut them into quarters so they're perfect little bite-sized chunks. That's going to help them cook faster if that's something you're interested in, or you can leave them in bigger chunks. It's totally up to you. Once my beets are all cut up, I'm going to get them in some olive oil and salt to roast. I did 1 tablespoon for this amount of beets. I had small beets, so you just don't want them flooded with oil, but you do want them evenly coated. And then I did about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt for this amount of beets. And this is going to help them bring out their sweet flavors when roasting. Give it a stir, and then you can put it on a lined baking sheet. You could put it on a cast iron pan like I'm going to do, but you're going to stick it in the oven, and we'll start off with 15 minutes until we do an initial stir. While that's happening, you can make your glaze. So it's a very simple glaze with balsamic vinegar and honey. I tend to do equal parts balsamic vinegar and honey. If you want it less sweet, you could do more vinegar, but give it a try and see what you like. I would start off with 2 tablespoons of vinegar and 2 tablespoons of honey. You're going to want to give it a really good stir so that the honey doesn't sit on the bottom. So do that for a couple of minutes. And when that timer goes off, make sure to remove the beets from the oven so that you can give them a good stir so that all sides are getting cooked thoroughly. You're going to stick it back in the oven for another 15 minutes, and when that's done, remove the pan, and now is the time that you'll go ahead and add in your balsamic vinegar and honey. You'll see it will bubble because the pan's hot. Just go ahead and stir it to make sure everything's evenly coated, and once again it goes back in the oven for 10 minutes. So the total cook time here is 45 minutes, which is normal for beets. 15, 15, and 10. After those last 10 minutes, you'll notice that the glaze has sort of shrunken. It's no longer liquidy and it's coating all of your beets. Now it's time to eat. You can either save them for a salad or just eat them as a side dish with dinner. They are delicious and a great thing to have your kids try if they've never had beets. Thanks for sticking with us, folks, and that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back in September. Don't forget to join us for Kitchen Support Hours. We offer one-on-one calls or video chats with our staff members to help you find creative ways to use your CSA items. Just book us with this link, bit.ly/kitchen support. Enjoy your veggies. Have an excellent month.